Hey everyone! After my 10 affordable portrait lenses for Sony video, I thought I would do one for travel lenses as well. I have so many lenses that come and go through my hands every year, and some of them leave such an impression on me for standing out with performance or image quality or convenience. So I want to share with you my list of 10 favorite lenses that are not GM expensive, but are also not super cheap either. They are mid-range lenses where you are getting good quality in return for your money. Last time with portraits, I focused mostly on prime lenses, and today's list mostly includes zoom lenses with just a couple of primes instead. Today's video is sponsored by PPA, the Professional Photographers of America, and I'll let you know more about them a little bit later on. I have also grouped all the similar lenses up to make it easier for you to compare, by the way. So to start things off, we have the Tamron 20-40mm f2.8, which weighs 365 grams. This lens covers a wider focal range. I can see it being used for landscape photography, astro, and even video work too. Both the performance and image quality it produces are super solid. This was a very easy lens for me to rely on during my time testing it. Something noteworthy about the 20-40 is that you can also do some macro photography with it. At 20mm, you have a max ratio of 1 to 3.8, and at 40, 1 to 5.1, which makes this an extremely versatile zoom. Next is the Tamron 28-75mm f2.8 G2, which is only one of two lenses that made an appearance on both my portrait and travel list. Since this is a standard zoom, it makes for the perfect focal range for travel. You can easily capture landscape photos, portraits, and telephoto shots with a single lens. The performance and image quality of this Tamron is great as well. The only downside for travel is you are missing out on the wider end, since a typical standard zoom is 24-70 compared to this one, which starts at 28. Wide angles are pretty important for travel, so this is definitely something to keep in mind depending on your style of photography. Before we move on, I want to let you know more about the sponsor of today's video, PPA. As a member of the Professional Photographers of America, you will have access to essential photography business tools such as up to $15,000 worth of equipment insurance, where you don't have to worry about damaging or losing your gear. PPA's indemnification trust to protect you against data loss and malpractice, as well as other business tools that are super handy to have on hand, like customizable contracts. PPA also have other exclusive benefits like discounts on gear and access to events like Imaging USA. So if you want to join the community at PPA to access these educational and business resources, please be sure to use the link in my description. Lens number 3 is the Sony 24-50mm f2.8. Similarly to the Tamron, it's a standard zoom lens, but this time we do have the wider 24mm end, but lose a little reach on the long end instead. The Tamron 28-75 weighs 365 grams compared to this Sony 24-50, which weighs 440 grams. So they are pretty similar in weight, but you do have more range with the Tamron for a few less grams. The Sony has some significant distortion on the wide end, but aside from that, it is a pretty impressive G lens. It produces sharp images with lots of clarity, has a good handle on chromatic aberration, and has nice looking bokeh and overall character. I also have to give a mention to the Sony 20-70mm f4. This lens suffers the same heavy vignetting and distortion as the Sony 20-70, but makes up for it in my opinion with character and image quality. If you don't need the lower light capabilities, or you find you don't shoot wide open at f2.8 very often, then this could be a good option for you. Compared to the last two lenses, this lens achieves the widest focal range, starting at a really nice 20mm for landscape photography, and the ability to zoom all the way up to 70, which is only 5mm less than the Tamron, and I don't think you would really notice it missing out on location. This lens weighs 488 grams, so it is the heaviest out of all three. At f4, it would have been nice to see this be a little bit lighter. Seeing as this lens is currently a very similar price point as the other two though, when comparing them, I find it hard to find a feature that makes it really stand out aside from the fact that you can shoot at 20mm. The main reason it's on my list is because of this feature. So this might be the most versatile lens for travel on my entire list, and it is the Tamron 35-150mm f2 to 2.8. And it doesn't just come for Sony, but Nikon Z mount as well. And I would love to see it on L mount one day too. The more time passes since the release of this lens, the more I'm hearing from photographers that this is the only lens they take with them while traveling, and I can see why. My main two travel lenses are a 35mm prime and the 70-200 for that compression. one. With this Tamron lens, you can get the look of both those lenses, but only in a single lens. The only downside I see with this lens, honestly, is the weight. The Sony mount version weighs around 1.1 kilos. I had it hanging off my shoulders for a hike once, and it was really weighing me down after a while. By the way, if you want to see reviews and more images from any of these lenses, I'll leave all my reviews about them in the comments. So now, I have a few primes to share with you. So lens number 6 is the Sony 20mm f1.8G, which I still wonder why they didn't classify this as a GM lens because the performance and quality is there. Over the years, I have mainly used this lens for video work. I had it as a vlogging lens for the longest time because it's small, fast, and lightweight at 375 grams. As I mentioned, it really has the makings of a GM lens in terms of image quality and performance. It's super sharp, the bokeh is clean and beautiful, and the performance on location doesn't skip a beat. I'm cheating a little bit with this next one because it's actually 3 lenses, but I'll only count them as one for our list. It's the Tamron trio of the 20mm, 24mm, and 35mm f2.8. These lenses were ahead of their time. They came out quite a while ago, and Tamron haven't made any prime lenses for Sony to this date, to my knowledge, which is a shame, by the way, because I would love to see Tamron dive into the world of primes again. These lenses produce nice image quality considering how affordable they are. The portraits I've captured with this set of primes are really nice and sharp, and you can see lots of details. There is some chromatic aberration that you would need to fix in post though. I was talking about the Tamron 28-75 possibly not being wide enough for some landscape photographers, so a consideration is you could always add something like this 20mm to your kit to capture those wide focal lengths. Lens number 8 is the Sigma 24mm f3.5 DGDN. So we do have a couple of options when it comes to these tiny prime lenses for travel. To compare, the Tamron 24mm f2.8 weighs 215 grams, and the Sigma 24 f3.5 is almost the same at 230 grams. There is also now the Sigma 24mm f2 DGDN, which I would need to test that out. From my experiences with both these lenses, I would say the Sigma is the sharper lens out of the two. I was able to capture some incredibly detailed portraits. Next, I have another Sigma lens from the contemporary line, and that is the Sigma 35mm f2. To compare, the Tamron 35 f2.8 weighs a tiny 210 grams, and the Sigma 35 f2 weighs 325 grams, but again, you have the added bonus of that faster aperture. This 35 f2 performs just like the Sigma 24 I was just talking about, with almost the same image quality. The main difference being the background to foreground separation, since we are now shooting with a longer lens. Speaking of, as yet another added bonus to this list, if you want a lens with more light or bokeh is very important to you, then you should take a look at the Sony 35mm f1.8. I mentioned this lens in my affordable portrait lens list, and it's more around the price range of the Tamron. Last but not least, I think it's really important to have a long lens with you while you're traveling. So if you don't have the Tamron 35-150, then you could take a look at the Sony 70-200 f4 instead. While this lens is quite pricey, it is affordable in the grand scheme of 70-200 lenses currently available, especially since it has optical image stabilization and can be used with teleconverters. But if you want something lighter and cheaper, then the Tamron 70-180 G2 is your best bet. While I don't think you'll miss much of the 20mm missing on the long end for portrait photography, this factor might need more consideration for travel and landscape photography. Aside from that, this lens is absolutely beautiful in my opinion. And that's it. Those are the slightly more than 10 affordable lenses that have made an impression on me in the last few years that I think are really good options for traveling with. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed out on any good travel lenses. And if you want to join PPA to gain access to their resources such as equipment insurance, customizable contracts, and more, please be sure to use the link in my description. Thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I'll see you all next time. Bye.